Yeah, just keep testing.
Testing. Testing.
Just keep going.
Test. This is a fun job. Test. Test. What? Test. Test. I hate you guys.
Are we ready?
Oh, I hate you.
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, 6 o'clock here. Councilman Gallagher is saying, how come aren't you started yet?
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Okay, it's a live mic?
Yeah.
All right. All right, well, it's 6 o'clock, well, to my clock. Councilman Gallagher's clock, it's probably 6:01. All right, 6:02. All right, we're getting started on time, pretty close. But thank y'all very much for coming tonight, and I hope we have a great audience in TV land out there also on taking a look at this presentation. I've actually seen it a couple of times already at city council level. Mr. Garza is going to come up here and tell us what all this is about. And I hope y'all have your questions ready and, being able to ask those questions to let everybody hear those answers, including those folks that are watching live as well. In fact, Paul, what's the process for people that are watching from home?
All they have to do is type in their question to YouTube there.
Okay, into the YouTube, everybody that's out there watching out in TV land, if you have a question, type them on to the YouTube thing, and we'll ask those questions directly to CPS here. Wow, we got a lot of CPS folks here also this evening. Great, it's good to see everybody represented tonight. So, with that, I don't think did I say who I was? I'm Clayton Perry. I'm on City Council, District 10, right here. Yes, thank you very much. And I also want to recognize a couple of our folks that are directly involved in this rate process, as well as other things going on with CPS. And one sitting right up here in the front, Mr. Jack Hebden. And he's a member on our rate advisory committee. And we also have Miss Allie Waters, who is right now the vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Council for CPS. So we have two representatives from District 10 on those two very important committees, and I just wanted to recognize them here tonight. And Jack, if you want to get up at any time and talk to, you can too as well. All right, well, with that, thank y'all all for being here again, and thank you for all those that are out there in TV land, and let's go ahead and get this started. So, Rudy, come on up. Let's give Rudy a hand. Come on down.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Rudy Garza. I am the interim president and CEO of CPS Energy. I've been in this job all of a whopping about 45 days, give or take. And believe it or not, I'm actually enjoying the opportunity to get out and talk to our community again. I think, as the councilman has said publicly in city council sessions, we absolutely have a lot of work to do getting back, where we need to be with the community and regaining your trust. Part of these conversations are those conversations where, you know, me and my leadership team need to be accessible and show up, and District 10 has always been, you know, whether it's Councilman Gallagher or, you know, Carlton Souls back in the day, now, you know, Councilman Perry, you know, y'all have probably some of the most engaged neighborhoods in the community, and I've been before the Neighborhood Association presidents before in District 10 to answer questions, and again, I know you have better things to do with your time than come listen to all the reasons, you know, why we think this request is timely and necessary. My colleague Chad Hoopengardner is going to run through the presentation, but I want to make a few comments to get going here. You know, as leaders of CPS Energy, I know, you know, and you know, I'll answer any questions you have about what happened back in February, what we're doing to be more prepared this time. But, you know, we've got to do a better job for our customers at the end of the day. And part of that is focusing on San Antonio. I told the councilman earlier today, I think CPS Energy spent a lot of time outside of San Antonio talking about the good things that we're trying to do in our industry. But if our customers don't trust us here at home and have you know, issues with the way we're serving the community, then obviously, you know, we've got to spend more time right here at home focusing on the things that you think we should be doing. There are a lot of things that we've tried to do over the last 2 years. The last 2 years, you know, I've been in this business 25 years, been here at CPS Energy for the last 10 years as a member of the executive team. I appreciate very much the fact that the board asked me to step in as Paula, you know, announced her retirement to lead. You know, the leading in a time of crisis is probably the most privileged time to lead, because not only do our employees, you know, have a lot of questions, and, you know, I'll tell you the morale at CPS Energy is pretty tough when we've, you know, we've been in the constant state of, it feels like, of challenges that we've faced over the last few years. Some of them self-inflicted challenges, some of them weather-related, some of them pandemic, global, you know, pandemic, that we've been trying to stay focused on serving, you know, our customers. But certainly, I'll stand up here and recognize we have a lot of work to do. And, you know, and Councilman Perry's been right, you know, to challenge us from the dais on the work that he believes that we've got to do to get back to where we are. And I'll say this, the CPS Energy, a weak CPS Energy is not good for the community. You know, the reason San Antonio, at least the city of San Antonio, has not had a tax increase in, I don't know, 30 some odd years is because, you know, the revenue we send back to the city it's important. It's important for all the things that the city does. I'm glad, you know, that we can do it. That's our responsibility. It's my responsibility as the leader of CPS Energy to ensure that return is consistent and something that the city can count on to, you know, pay for police and fire and roads and sidewalks and all the things that the city does, you know, to keep our community going. We've been having a conversation about the need for a rate adjustment for probably the last 3 or 4 years now. It's been multiple years that we've done things to cut costs. Over the last 10 years, we've cut close to $900 million out of our budget. And that's the right thing to do, to be more efficient, you know, to spend money, you know, where we need to and cut back where we don't. It's all, we will continue to do that going forward. It's been 8 years since we've had a rate increase. I was telling Councilman earlier, you know, it's been over the last 30 years, CPS Energy's had 5. I think over the last 10 years, Solace has had 8, just to give you, you know, a little bit of context for how infrequently we come in and have these conversations. But when we do come in, it's because we're looking at our financial metrics, we're looking at our service levels and how we're providing service. And, you know, when those levels get stressed, that is the time to come in and have a thoughtful conversation with our owner regulator, the city, ultimately our community. We're a publicly owned utility. I understand that. I'm trying to get us back to refocusing on being what the community expects out of us and being a publicly owned utility. But we got a responsibility to come before the community and ask for support when we feel like, you know, our metrics are trending in a direction that's going to that's gonna take us in a way that, you know, to a place where we're not getting the lights back on as quickly as we need to. We're not answering phones, you know, in the standard that we set for ourselves to answer phones, and do all the things, keep our employees safe, make sure our gas is flowing, make sure our power plants are running. And so a lot of the investments that you will see in how we plan to spend the dollars, if our council so approves them, is, you know, it goes right back into the service that we're providing you. There's nothing frivolous in here. We started out at around 10% because we're really looking at a 10-year, a long-term, you know, kind of list of investments that we know we're gonna have to make over the next decade. What we've done here is pared it back to really focus on the next 2 years. We're right now at around 3.85%. That city staff has, you know, agreed is just and reasonable and should be supported by city council. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to come out and explain to you exactly what we're going to do with around those $73 million a year, that extra rate increase will ultimately, you know, provide to the organization. So, you know, what we're talking about, you know, in the private sector, and I've worked for utilities outside of San Antonio. Private sector, on the gas side, utilities are typically into the Railroad Commission about every 3 years for a rate increase. Electric utilities, probably about every 5 years. It's been 8 years since CPS Energy has been in. So at a minimum, whatever happens with this request, at a minimum, we got to come in at least every other year and reconcile what our financials look like, make sure council understands, you know, where we are and how we intend, you know, to do the job the community's expected of us. But these aren't our dollars, and let me just, acknowledge that these are your dollars. Ultimately, these are dollars that it takes to provide the level of service that you expect out of us. I acknowledge, and we can talk all night tonight about, you know, what February was like. I know it was bad, and it was bad for a lot of reasons, but CPS Energy certainly has acknowledged the things that we got to do better, and we can talk about that. I'll talk to you about the investments that we've made, the focus that we've had over the last 9 months. You know, this winter season will be better because we're more prepared for an event of the scale which we had never seen in our industry, you know, at least over the last, you know, 25 years that I've been in it. So I do feel like we focused on the right things. What we're talking about tonight are the investments that we make just to keep our system stable. There's really kind of 4 key areas, along with the fuel costs that we paid up to date associated with winter storm, that our rate request really encompasses. And so I'll stop there. I'm going to turn it over to Chad Hoopengarner, who is our Vice President over strategic pricing. He handles all of our rates and our rate structures and, you know, everything having to do with how we earn revenue to provide the service that we provide for the community. I thank you for being here again. Once Chad is done, we've got about 10-15 minute presentation. I'll come back up here and we'll sit here and answer questions all night. So thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. Yeah, there's kind of some issues going on with CPS Energy morale, and I'll tell you that I'm encouraged by that guy being our interim president and CEO. So thank you, Rudy, for everything you're doing for us. Yeah, my name is Chad Hoopengarner. I'm a vice president in our finance area, and that's my really long title. But what it means is I work for Rudy and I work for our CFO to identify when we need a rate increase and how much of a rate increase we need. And I'm going to apologize in advance. The cedar is really messing with my throat. So what am I going to talk about tonight? Well, I've done a number of these. And the first thing that we always hear when we end the presentation and we open it up for questions, about the first 5 questions are about Winter Storm Uri. So we're going to talk about that first. We're going to tackle that issue first. And then I'll talk a little bit about how the world has changed in the 8 years since we last asked our community to support a rate increase. I'll give you some detail on where we're going to spend the money that comes from the rate increase. And then I'll talk about the specific impact it has on customer bills, what we're doing to help the vulnerable in our community with our affordability discount program. And I'll end by talking about how you can be involved a little bit more over the coming weeks. Okay, so this is our Winter Storm Uri slide. We've done a lot already and the rate request includes a lot more. These are some of the things that we've done already. We're fighting for our customers. You may have seen in the news or heard in the news, we received a total of $1 billion in invoices for natural gas and electricity for the 1 week of Winter Storm Uri. To put that into dimension, we generally spend, I don't know, a few $1 million in the entire year on natural gas for that 1 week, right? So it was unbelievably expensive, and we had no choice. And we've paid a little over $400 million of that, and it's time to start passing that to our customers. But we're fighting the other roughly $600 million of it. And we're gonna keep fighting it because we believe the prices they charged us, the prices all of the natural gas companies charged all of the utilities in Texas, were unconscionable. So we're fighting that fight. Improving grid management. And one of the issues that happened during Winter Storm Uri is we didn't have great visibility into what was working and what wasn't working. We had to have people in the field observing things, calling customers, and then calling back to the station to figure out what did we need to go work on next. But there's some things that you can do as a utility to better monitor and have awareness of the performance of your grid. Hardening critical infrastructure. So it turns out it's not that hard to protect a plant from the hot Texas summers, and it's not that hard to protect a plant from the cold Chicago winters. But to do both in the same plant is very, very difficult. I get questions from family and friends that live in Chicago or Philadelphia like, why did you fail? You had 4 days of cold weather. Like, that's nothing for us. Well, that's because we get 104-degree days in the middle of August, and we design the power plants for ventilation. Well, ventilation doesn't do a whole lot to keep you warm when it's 10 degrees outside. So hardening critical infrastructure means insulating things and building enclosures around things so that we can put heaters in there when it gets really, really cold. We also did not do a good enough job collaborating with our sister utility. So your power went out, and then we hit you again by cutting the power to critical pumping stations of our sister utility. So you didn't get electricity, and then you didn't get water. And that's because we hadn't talked enough to our sister utility. We've done that now. We know where we're able to cut circuits and where we're not because of the critical infrastructure. The Committee for Emergency Preparedness, that's the CEP, they came forward with quite a few recommendations, and we're pursuing all of them. Improving communication, so there's kind of two pieces of improving communication. One is our network communicating with itself and us. The other is how we communicate with customers. So I got a text message Monday morning, 2 a.m. of Winter Storm Uri, and it said, rolling blackouts are about to start. You'll have 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. Then my power went out for 2 days, and I never heard another thing from CPS Energy for like another 4 days. We weren't good enough. We didn't do enough to talk to our customers about what was happening in real time. So we've got some system changes that we're making to do that. I tell you, in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten more text messages from CPS Energy, not as an employee, but as a customer, about things that are happening or things that could happen in the next couple of days with weather. So we've taken a lot of steps forward here. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a few slides about the things that we're going to do after this year, after the current year that we're in. But mainly what I've talked about so far is the things that we've done up until this point. Okay, so we made this slide a few months ago, and our initial intent was sort of, well, we were kind of going for shock value. We wanted to tell a story about how much the world had changed around us in the amount of time that has transpired since we last asked for a rate increase. That story is still relevant, but the tone isn't quite there. So let me just hit a couple of highlights on this slide. We last asked for a rate increase in the fall of 2013, and it was effective in early 2014. Since then, we have between 15 and 20% more customers. That's a lot more electric lines, that's a lot more gas distribution mains and lines for us to operate and maintain. Yes, we do get some additional revenue when the system grows, but it still takes additional obligation to keep everything up and running. There's a few bubbles on here that talk about how assets have grown and how many additional touch points with customers we have. The cyber threat is a particularly poignant statistic. We have an 8,000% increase in cyber data breaches worldwide in the last 8 years. That's unbelievable, and utilities really are bearing the brunt of that. Technology platforms I'll talk about in a minute, and I'll end with, on this slide, I'll end with employees. So we've saved a whole bunch over the last 8 years so that we didn't have to do rate increases. I've been at CPS Energy since late 2015, and every single year my job was to see if we needed a rate increase, and if so, how much. The company as a whole has done everything that we could to avoid it. Part of that is we've let natural attrition and retirements kind of decrease the number of employees that we had, so we've saved some money. Now we've got a bunch of overworked employees that are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And that's leading to burnout, and that's just not the right way to run a company with your good employees. So a lot has changed in the 8 years since we've asked for a rate increase. What are we asking for? 3.85% base rate increase. That's kind of some wacky words that my team uses. The base portion of your bill is about 60% of the total. The rest of it is what we call the adjustments. It's like fuel adjustment and regulatory adjustment. Those are variable costs that we just pass through to customers. We don't determine those costs to a large extent. So 3.85% base rate increase. It translates to a little over $70 million a year in incremental revenue. We're planning for it to be effective March 1st. That's assuming some additional things happen in the next few weeks, of course. As part of that, every time we do a rate request, we pay particular attention to our vulnerable community, our low-income segment. One of our biggest programs is the Affordability Discount Program. We've got about 52,000 customers that are enrolled in the Affordability Discount Program. To be eligible, you have to have an income that is at or less 125% of the federal poverty limit. And we have plenty of that in San Antonio. Currently, we give them about a $12 a month discount. And with this rate increase, what we've done is built in some additional funding to offset all of that 3.85%. Okay, so that translates to almost $4 of an additional discount. In addition, the funding will be used to expand how many customers can participate in the program. So that's an important part of what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide, and this is where I'll look at my notes. This is how the 73-ish million breaks out. Almost half of it is infrastructure resiliency. Now, that's kind of our funny way of saying winterizing and weatherizing and making things more robust so that they don't fail if we have another winter storm Uri. I talked to you about some of the things that we've already done to date. There's kind of two buckets of things that will be funded by this. The first is improving awareness and control of how the system operates. So there's additional communications equipment that helps our grid communicate to us. We have a master system called SCADA, which is essentially, it controls and sees data and controls in response to seeing the data. We're using an older version and we need to replace it. We're also adding, to the tune of about $10 million a year, what we call reclosers. Reclosers are control boxes. They're software control boxes, and you can put them in a circuit to give you a finer level of control over the pieces of that circuit. So you may have heard of the news and you may have even experienced this. Some people were out of power for 2, 3, 4+ days. Some folks never lost power. Generally, the folks that never lost power, it's because they were on a critical circuit. They were upstream of a hospital. We've got a substation, serves the hospital, serves 3,000 customers. We can't cut the power to the hospital because it's a hospital. And so the 3,000 customers upstream benefited from that. What that meant was the customers that were reachable had to be out for longer. Okay, so these reclosers, that's one instance. We'll put one right upstream of a hospital, right? And that gives our system the ability to add more people to the eligible pool for what we call load shed. all right? And the thought is it lessens the pain on each individual person, okay? In other words, you're just not out for as long because there's more load available for us to cut in an emergency when we absolutely have to. Okay, the second piece of this one is improving the durability and the performance of our power plants. We are doing more to weatherize, more installation and more enclosures around critical equipment. There's replacement of some specific power plant systems, burners and igniters. I don't know what a burner or an igniter is other than they burn and they ignite, but my power plant operators do. And the way I think about this is it's like if you're going on a road trip, you're gonna open up the hood of your car, and if your timing belt is a little frayed, or the voltage in your battery is a little low, you might go ahead and replace those, right? That's what these items are. And then this one's interesting too. So one of the reasons we failed was because natural gas was pretty hard to get during the winter storm. So we're building the capability at some of our natural gas plants to operate off of alternative fuel sources. So we'll keep a different type of fuel on site, and if natural gas goes down, we'll be able to continue running the plant. But that costs a little bit of money to be able to do that. Okay, so that's infrastructure resiliency. I wanted to spend a long time on that one. Technology. So we have this backbone system that is responsible for measuring everything and billing everybody. It's responsible for all of our financial systems and accounting systems. It's responsible for all of our HR systems. That system and about 50 ancillary systems around it were installed in the late 90s. And what that means is many of the new employees that we're hiring these days at entry-level positions weren't even born the last time we upgraded our technology system. They come in the door and we ask them to work on technology that's 20 plus years old. So that's not great for the customers because it limits our ability to do stuff for you and be up to advanced technology. So we're going to replace it. It takes about 7 years to replace a massive system like this. And 7 years from now, the vendor that sold us the system is no longer going to support the system. They're giving us plenty of advance notice because it's such a huge project. So what we've done with this rate request is we've asked for just the first 2 years of money that we need to start that process. If we don't start now, we'll get to the end and we won't have support from the vendor, and if something breaks, it's going to be broken for a long time. Bills won't go out, we won't be able to read meters. Quite a few side effects of that one. So that's something we felt like we couldn't pull out of this. We had to include that. Okay, growth. Everybody knows our system is growing, our community is growing. This money covers extending our distribution services, building new substations and expanding existing substations, rerouting electric lines and gas lines when there's new construction, and then installing new gas distribution lines and additional gas and electric meters. That's all stuff that you can sort of visualize. That's related to the growth of our community. The question I get a lot is, well, if you're growing, aren't you getting more revenue from the new customers? Yes, we are. On average, for a residential customer, it takes about $8,000 worth of assets and infrastructure to serve that customer's needs. And we got to build that at the beginning. Then we send them a bill each month for about 150 bucks, right? And it takes like 8 or 9 years for them to fully contribute to those initial fixed costs. So as a community, and this is the model that every utility follows, rather than sending a new customer an $8,000 bill in their first month and a $100 bill each additional month, we take that and we just spread it out over everybody, okay? And the way I think about it is it's almost like paying it forward, because when the system was grown for me, other people helped pay for that infrastructure, right? And so now I'm gonna help pay when it grows. Conversely, new customers also pay for the maintenance on systems that have been there a long time, even though they're not responsible for running down that equipment, right? So that's how I think about it. We're a community, we socialize the big costs across all of our customers. People. So I said we're down about 3,400 employees. We are. We also have, as they have gone, we've done a very strategic hiring freeze. We have hired some people over the last couple of years, but it's very strategic, and it's hard to get approval to do it. I know because I've asked a lot to fill some seats that I have empty. And what that means is the people that are left are working extra hours, and they've been doing it for 3 years now, and they're tired. We need to get back up to our full staffing levels. Right now, we're losing employees, and we're losing offers that we make to potential employees for certain salary levels because they're not enough. So some of this money is building a better salary infrastructure, primarily for our field workers and our frontline, more junior level positions. This money does not go to give executives raises. That was a very specific, clear ask that our partners at the city staff and the public utility office requested. They said, I don't want anything in there that has to do with executive salaries. So there's none. Okay, so that's some detail about where the money's going. There's a second part to this, and I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. Out of $1 billion of invoices for fuel that we've received, we've paid a little over $400 million. And we started paying that in April or May, and we have not passed any of that through to our customers yet, because we needed to have this conversation before we started doing that. And that was a commitment that Paula made back during Winter Storm Uri. We're not going to start passing through this until we have a complete conversation with the community about what these costs are and why these costs exist. Now, these costs are not, excuse me, these costs are not base rate costs. They're fuel costs. So they'll show up in a different piece of the bill, but at the end of the day, it's about $1.25, $1.26. As for the average customer, it's based on usage, so if you use a little less than average is about 1,050 kilowatt hours a month. If you use a little less than average, then your bill impact is smaller, and if you use more than average, it's higher. But when you add that to the base portion, this is what you get. So the 3.85% base rate increase that applies to about 60% of your bill, that equates to 2.5% of your total bill, right? And that's a little under $4, $3.84, again, for the average customer. You add that to the $1.26, it's a little over $5. In total, it's a 3.3% total bill increase. And we characterize this a lot of different ways, and we try to be very, very careful about it. There's certain ways we have to characterize it for putting it in the ordinance that our city council members would approve, hopefully. But our customers care about the bill impact. What's going to happen in a monthly bill? So it's a little bit over a 3% increase to your monthly bill. What does that mean for commercial customers? It's about the same. It's actually a little bit higher. The reason it's a little bit higher is because our affordability discount program is funded by all customers. It's not just funded by residential customers, but the residential customers are the ones that benefit. And so it makes the commercial contribution to the overall rate request a little bit more than the residential contribution. It's just kind of the way the averages work. The gas impact is a little bit higher because the gas cost of Winter Storm Uri is not diversified amongst the fuel mix for gas because gas is just gas. Okay, so what's coming next? With the Rate Advisory Committee, we've spent the last 6 months with them doing everything that we could to share information and educate and get them to where we felt they needed to be to contribute. And I'll tell you that they are a very hardworking group of folks that is very smart and ask very insightful questions. We've spent the last month or so sharing the specific data of this rate request and then walking through all the pieces and answering as many questions as possible. Last Thursday, we asked them to vote in support of the rate request. We had 12 people that said, yeah, I can support it. I don't like it, but I understand it and I can support it. Then we had 6 people who said, no, I'm not going to support it for a variety of different reasons. That made me happy because I personally have put a lot of work into the Rate Advisory Committee, but I've been blown away by how hard these folks have worked over the last 6 months. I mean, Jack, you know how much time we've spent with them. So we asked them to vote last Thursday. Right after the new year, we will ask the Citizens Advisory Committee for a support resolution. So they'll vote as well. And then almost a week later, we will stand in front of our Board of Trustees and ask for their support for a rate increase. And then just a few days after that, we'll make our final, hopefully our final presentation to the city council members, and we'll ask for their support for the rate increase. And if it passes on that day, then it would be effective on March 1st. So still about 6 weeks after the vote. So in terms of learning more and getting involved and being able to get more information, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. We've got a special board meeting on January 10th. We encourage you to show up and be a public input, public speaker. The rate advisory committee in the city has met, and we kind of have that piece checked. But if you want to, you can go listen to all of the presentations from the last 6 months. It would take you a few days, and it's riveting. Customer assistance programs you can find information about online. And then there's a little bit more information online about the actual rate request that we're going to make. And I want to call out this bill estimator. So I was speaking in averages a lot tonight because it's simpler to do it that way. But you can take your bill, whatever your usage is, you can go to our website and you can type in your usage and hit the button, and it'll tell you what your bill would have been had the rate increase already been effective. And I encourage you to do that. Okay, that's the end of my prepared remarks, but we'll open it for questions.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, so I know you guys, it's a gentle juggling act you've got. You've got to get ahead of this and save our butts. But everybody screams because of the cost of their stuff's going up. So I guess my basic question is, for what you've asked, are we really going to get ahead of this? Or are we just putting a Band-Aid on this thing?
Great question.
Rudy, can you repeat the questions for the
Yes, sir.
audience?
So the question is, for what we're asking for, is this really just a Band-Aid, or is it truly going to improve the overall experience of our customers? Whether you call us, whether you have an outage and we're responding, what I'd love to happen is for you to never think about CPS Energy, pay your bill, feel like you're getting good service, and go on about your business. I think it's a measured step in the right direction. What we're doing is doing the planning work that it takes to get ahead of these. So we will be getting ahead of what I would consider critical investments. And I've been talking to council about this a lot. The $31 million for infrastructure resiliency, whether we get this rate increase or not, we're going to have to spend that. That's a compliance issue. Our overall computer system, whether we get this rate increase or not, we're going to have to prepare for a new computer system that runs everything. And so then it becomes about trade-offs. We can keep focusing on trying to serve the way we normally do year in and year out. We've provided service for the last 8 years without a rate increase. We will continue to put power on the lines and gas in the pipe and serve you. But we will have to make trade-offs for the things we absolutely have to spend money on that we're asking for here versus changing out old poles. And I used an analogy. What's happening here when you go this long is you've got a regular sized piece of bread and you got an amount of peanut butter that you're making a sandwich on. That bread's getting bigger, but I still got the same amount of peanut butter to work with. And so, the tastiness of that sandwich is going to erode over time because you only got so much peanut butter to work with. And you got a bigger piece of bread. That's really what's happening here. That bigger piece of bread represents additional investment above just the day-to-day stuff that we got to spend money on to provide service that we're asking for here, knowing, and the councilman has been honest about this, there are placeholders, 2 years from now and 2 years, after that we have to put in place to just as part of our overall financial plan. I don't know that it's going to be 5% or 0%. Maybe next year we have a really great, wholesale year. So we produce more power than our customers ultimately utilize, and that's been strategic. Every dollar when we sell power into the wholesale market in ERCOT, that's revenue that we get back that we don't have to ask our customers for. So if we have a great, good wholesale year, then that's less money we have to ask for, in the subsequent years. So we balance all that, but we have to put those placeholders in there because, as I stated, whether we need the money or not at that time, we gotta have a conversation about where we are. So we don't show up 8 years from now saying, hey, it's been 8 years. We're having those conversations more frequently.
Well, I mean, that's my basic issue. And I liken this to like the highways. You know, we scrimp and we cut, you know, we do just the minimum to solve the problem now. And we don't do everything that might be prudent. And we wind up paying for it in multiples 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right.
And I'm still not hearing the answer to the basic question, are we really getting ahead of this? Or are we just gonna be pay me now, pay me later kind of thing? And we're gonna pay big time later on when the infrastructure doesn't keep up
Sure.
with what the heck we're doing. So I need an answer to that hard question.
Right. So there are some decisions that, you know, there were, when we got to 10%, we were thinking about the generation decisions our community is gonna have to make. We were thinking about, you know, other long-term, you know, our initial estimate on that computer system was $300 million. That's a power plant. We're basically having to invest in what it would take us to build a power plant just to replace a basic computer system that's 22, you know, years old. But what the city's asked us to do is let's scale back what the ask is on the stuff that you're not sure about. Let's go and sharpen our pencil. Maybe that $300 million is only $250 million. So if I put $300 million in it, I only need $250. You know, in the regulatory world, that's kind of an over, you know, that's an over recovery, you know, of revenues. So it allows us to go out there, get the process started, get a hard number. We've got some generation decisions that we've got to make that we've committed to get on the right path to make over the next 12 months or so that at least we know our community wants us to invest in more renewables and build new gas plants. And here's what that's going to cost us, and we got to plan for that over the next 10 years. Well, then we can come back in a couple of years and say, look, here's what the community told us they wanted and what they said they were willing to, you know, to pay to get it. And then put that into the rates based on whatever the reconciled, you know, financials look like at that time. So I do believe that what we're asking for keeps us on the right track, allows us to continue, you know, to provide the level of service that I believe our customers want us to, and be thoughtful about the investments that we'll have to come back and ask the community for in the future. It's not that we don't need it, it's that we're trying to get real specific about what those numbers are. So again, and we said it before, as a community-owned utility, we try not to ask our customers for a penny more or less than what we need. You know, this is a thoughtful investment that we feel is at least, you know, keeps us on the right track.
Okay, we're counting on you, man.
Yes, sir, I know you are. Understand. Any other questions?
Come on, man, y'all gotta have more questions than that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have several, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so you're talking about this $1 billion, we have this $1 billion problem. And so far, you've legitimately come up with $418 to $450 million that you call are legitimate.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have about $550 million still on the table.
Yes, ma'am.
What happens if you determine that $500 million is legitimate also? We're gonna bear that one too, aren't we?
The courts will ultimately decide that.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, so the question is, what about that other roughly $600 million that remains outstanding that we're fighting in court? You know, what happens if those become just and reasonable? Well, we're fighting them because we believe we were price gouged. You know, there's some level of reasonability that you can calculate in a you know, when you're dealing with commodity like natural gas. Sometimes demand just more than supply, and there's some, you know, increase in price that's reasonable. When we're making these settlements, we're working with the demand that economically we've done a study. We know what we should have paid, even in a scarcity market that reflects the reality of dealing with markets. The prices that we're still fighting are 400% to 1,000% above what we believe was appropriate. You know, we were in a reliability crisis, and then we had an affordability crisis hit us all at the same time because gas suppliers couldn't help themselves. prices shot up, and that's what they charged us because they could, when some suppliers did the right thing and said, no, you know, you've been a good customer of ours, we're gonna work with you, you know, to get to a reasonable price. Those are the conversations that we've settled. You know, we spent $1 billion because we had to keep our power plants running, to keep gas in our gas system, because we were trying to get the whole system kind of out of the ditch that week. So the way this regulatory asset works, so when you call it a regulatory asset, it is a mechanism, and Chad will do a lot better, you know, job at this than I will, but it is a mechanism that allows us to take a one-time expense and spread that out over multiple years so that our customers pay a reasonable, you know, cost for that. We have nowhere else to go. The legislature was no help. Federal government, you know, has helped us on assistance for customers who got behind on their bill, but they've done nothing to alleviate this fuel cost that everybody was charged. So we only got one other place to go, and that's you. Our customers pay whatever the cost that comes through CPS Energy to provide service, that, you know, our customers pick up that entire tab. So this regulatory asset, you know, the tool is being set up to allow for the full $1 billion recovery if we find ourselves, if we're unsuccessful in our litigation, then we will absolutely have to pay that, you know, off at some point in time. But we're only asking for the $418 that we paid up to now. If we had to pay the whole $1 billion, it'd be about $3. You know, we're $1.26 right now. So the mechanism is set up to deal with that liability long term. But right now, you know, and we can't do that without going back to council and having a conversation with them about where we are in our litigation. So it's contemplating the possibility of paying the whole amount, but we can't pay any more than what we've paid. And every iteration going forward, we'll have to come back and seek council approval as well.
Okay, another question. What if a new management comes in and decides that they want a completely different plan for long-term, for technology?
Great question. So the question is, what if new management comes into CPS Energy and changes up whatever the plan is now? New management can't do anything to spend more money that we may or may not have without coming back and having another conversation with council. So, you know, again, if they want to come in and spend money as though we got a 10% rate increase, they're going to do so at, you know, at the detriment of our financials. So I think, you know, this plan is being brought forth. You know, our board has been involved. Our city staff has been involved. I will tell you, we weren't doing a great job of gaining alignment with our city staff, you know, our owner regulator. I think we've done a much better job reframing the process to make sure we're on the same page. And any new leader, whether it's me or somebody else in the future, you know, I'm in this now because I agreed that somebody had to lead and I'm glad to do it. But if a new leader comes in with a different vision, they only got so much money to work with. So it's a trade-off at that point between what we're focused on now versus what a new leader might want to do going forward.
The committee that was formed, and they had roughly 37 recommendations. You mentioned that you were pursuing all of them. What exactly does pursuing mean? Does it mean that they're actually in an implementation stage? And if so, how far down the road are they in that implementation? Have any of these recommendations actually been completed?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm signing off almost daily. I'm sorry, Councilman, I keep forgetting. So the Committee on Emergency Preparedness was put together. Reed Williams, former city councilman, he's also chair of our rate advisory committee now, was asked to lead that group of private citizens who took an independent look at what happened in February and said, here are some things that we think you need to do that were in CPS Energy's control. There are about 39 of them, give or take. We will be done we'll be completing some will be ongoing, right? So one of them is, you know, pay attention to state regulation and participate in the process to ensure we protect our customers. That's paraphrasing, but there is a regulatory item in there. That'll continue for the next 3 years. We by the end of December, we would have completed at least submitted our plan for how we're going to address each and every one of those, most of which will be complete. And what happens is I got to sign off on the action plan. We sent a letter to the chair of the Municipal Utility Committee, which is District 9, my councilman, John Courage. And, and the city checks off, what we've done, or they'll come back to us and say, no, we don't think this is fully addressed, you gotta do more. So all 39 of those will be addressed by the end of the year.
Okay,
Let me throw in a couple of online questions here.
Sure.
One is about the ARPA money that was allocated by the city council to CPS to CPS. Has CPS received those dollars?
CPS Energy is in the process of, yes, the question is, I'll get this right before the end of the meeting, sir. The question is, the city allocated $20 million in ARPA funding to help customers that are at or below a certain income level with catching up on the utility bills, which we're very appreciative of. Thank you, sir, for the allocation. Have you received those funds? So right now, the city is working through the process to allow us to actually access the program. We have already started signing customers up. So we've got around KJ 4,000, give or take, customers who have already applied for the funding. And as soon as we get what we call the interlocal agreement worked out between CPS Energy and the city, we'll start submitting those applications. I don't believe we will actually start receiving money until January, maybe February at the earliest. But I promise you, that $20 million will allow us to take care of about 20,000 customer bills. So we'll wipe those customers' bills out with that $20 million, which will certainly help with the cash infusion. That'll go a long way for CPS Energy. So again, very impactful, and we appreciate the help.
Okay, and a follow-on to that, why are the dollars being used for delinquent customers? And can't these be allocated to the shortage whereby they don't need to raise the rate?
So the question is, why can't that 20 million be used to offset the potential need for a rate increase versus paying off customer bills? That's federal funding. Utility assistance is one of the criteria for utilizing that funding in the community. So we can't take it and use it for something else. So those are compliance requirements that the city have to comply with, and that's what it's for, utility assistance.
Okay, then another question, is CPS intending to cut their administrative cost in this process?
Chad, why don't you give them some, so the question is CPS Energy planning to cut administrative costs? We talked a little bit in the presentation about the $900+ million that we've cut out. Some of that is administrative costs. I will tell you, I'm losing executives on a pretty frequent basis right now. I'm restructuring the executive team to take advantage of the executives we have back. That we still have. So so inherently the number of executives is going to go down, than from where it's currently been. But we will always look for opportunities to be as efficient as we can on the administrative side. Chad, what percentage of our budget, give or take, are administrative costs? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I think maybe 40.
Well, it's not 40. Well, that's all. That includes labor and all. The good majority of our overheads are labor overheads. But Councilman, we'll get some more information back to you on that one.
Okay, and that's all the online questions.
Okay, very good. There was a question back here, ma'am. I'll come right back to you. Yes, sir.
So not really a question, more of a suggestion. You opened up with talking about improving communications to customers.
Yes, sir.
And in the presentation, I really see that you've got two big icebergs up in front of the ship. You've got that technology replacement, and you've got that possible fuel charge.
Right.
Okay. As part of your communication, would you be willing to update the customers periodically on how those things are going?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Repeat that.
The question is,
Surprises.
yes, sir. Well, I can hear you so well. I've just assumed everybody else can hear you too. I'm sorry, and I'm hard of hearing. The question is, the two big icebergs that the customers in the room see in the presentation are the outstanding fuel costs that remains somewhat of an unknown, and overall technology. Will we update the customers on the progress we're making on those two fronts? And what I would tell you is, we would, it's a great idea, something I hadn't thought about, quite frankly, is how do we, as we go forward, we've got a really nice spot on our website where you can get all the information on our rate case. We're providing periodic updates on how the investment is going. You approved $31 million in funding for infrastructure resiliency. How much of that money have you spent so far, and what have you spent it on? You know what, I think that's a great thing that we can communicate. Employees, I'll tell you, I can't run a utility without operators, without engineers, without technicians, and the money we're talking about here, will still only get us about 250 employees a year, possibly, to try to get caught up over the next 12 to 18 months. And I'm losing, at the end of January, I will lose 50 employees to retirement. And on an annual basis, we lose about 100. And I got about 50% of my overall workforce over the next 5 years that's going to be eligible for retirement. So even our ability to hire employees and to reassure, because that's a question I get a lot that folks are concerned about. I lost somebody today. I lost an employee that I was completely shocked. I didn't realize we were losing, who got paid double the amount that we were paying him and gets to work from home full time. I lost a vice president in the power generation side, up and coming leader. He could sit in my role, down the road. Utility up the road paid him $75,000 more than we could pay him, and 2 bonus programs that we really can't do anymore. So the competition for talent is real. When I have to hire an operator, for instance, if it takes $120,000 to get him in the door, it's not. I don't set the price. They're either going to come and work for me, or they're going to go work for another utility. So I got to pay them whatever it takes, and then guess what I got to do? I got to bring everybody else up who's in that same job category to that level, because they've just reset the market, and I can't pay the people who've been here any less than I'm bringing somebody in new to the door. So, and we can kind of structurally work around, executive, type losses. If I need 10 operators, I got to have 10 operators to run our system. Our system's growing, and that is a pretty big concern of mine. So, sir, I think long-winded answer to absolutely. We will come up with a way to update our community, update our customers on how we're doing at the investments that we've asked you for.
Rudy, can you spin that just a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Rather than just telling us how much you spent and what you spent it on, we need to know, what did we gain from it?
Great point. So the question is, Councilman Perry, the question is, how do we track how that investment has improved service levels for our customers? And that is absolutely something we can do. We don't have it here tonight, but I can show you, in some key metrics, our performance is trending downward, and we got to get that moving in the other direction.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
What did we gain from that investment?
Yes, sir. Understood. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I'm concerned with the fact that we don't have enough employees to do the job. I'm concerned with the fact that it doesn't sound like we're being competitive to get those employees. I'm concerned with the fact that you don't have an updated computer, like a 20-year-old computer. So that is the influx of our problems right now, right? We can't keep up. What are we doing to look towards the future? How can we save customers money by making the future electricity affordable, like with installing solar panels? Like, I can't afford to do some solar panels. That means I go into debt to do it.
Right.
So what, in regards to this, what you guys are asking, how can that be reverted back to us to make it affordable so that we're doing our own energy saving, and then we're looking towards the future? I'm scared that we're not looking for people to come and work for our company that knows what the future is.
Right.
So we're just backpedaling to keep it running.
So the question is, how do we ensure that the money that we're spending, that all the priorities that we talked about tonight, lead to a more affordable place, lead to a more effective management of the utility company. Again, going back to your, to your statement, ensure that that those dollars are flowing right back to our customers. The fact is, man, for the last 3 years, and really over the last 2 years in particular, we've been treading water in a lot of these areas because, customers owe us $130 million. We've seen $100 million, give or take, of activity associated with recovering, from Winter Storm Uri. We got $1 billion, a price tag out there. These are really, really big. This has been one of the most challenging times, of any time over my 25 years, in the industry. And what I would tell you, and it's how Chad and I present this a little differently, but one of the things that I say when I talk about those 4 things is every one of those is going to improve, is going to ensure that we can serve you the way, that you expect us to serve you. If I have the employees I need, the efficiency it takes, now I don't have to pay people overtime to do the work they're doing. We can pay people regular time and spread that cost out over employees. If I have a computer system that gives you more information, guess what you can do with that information? You can take that information and figure out a way to save money because you know that I'm spending this percentage on air conditioning and this percentage on lighting. Right now, our ability to give you information is limited by a 22-year-old system. We get a lot of criticism, quite frankly, for. I know I have a fuel component in my bill, but I don't know what's in it. There are 5. I don't know if you know this. There are 5 different, kind of categories of spend in that fuel charge, which would include in the future this fuel cost regulatory asset. But I'd love to be able to show you those so you know exactly, what all is in your fuel bill. If that's 40% or whatever the number is of your overall bill, can't do that with our current system. That more information will just empower you to use energy, in a more efficient manner. So, I would contend that every one of these investments will allow us to be more efficient and allow our energy product to be more affordable over the long term.
What is holding up the fact then that you guys can't hire people? What holds that up? Is that something that has to go to council and be voted on?
No, ma'am. I mean, internally, again, if the majority of our costs, what is preventing us from hiring the employees that we need? When your business is somewhat being starved for cash, and it's hard to say that when we bring in $2.8 billion or whatever it is a year. A lot of that is fuel cost, but for the operation and maintenance component of our budget, when you don't have enough to go around, there's only one place you can really go and control your costs, and that's to implement a hiring freeze. Now, that doesn't include linemen and the people that actually come out to your home when you've got a problem and fix the infrastructure. We got to have those people. But certainly, our ability to hire in a new person and then lift everybody else up to that level is certainly impacted when we don't have enough budget to make it work. So that's what's in this. In this amount we're asking for. It's not only to hire in the people that we've been holding off on hiring into, but it's also to do the equity adjustments to be fair with all the employees that are here. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So good evening and Merry Christmas, everybody. Earlier, sir, I thought I heard you say that y'all needed 10%. Is that correct?
Well, initially, that's where we started.
I mean, that's what you said, right? And then
Yes,
you
ma'am.
downscaled it. Okay, because that wasn't my question. My question is then, you're asking for 3.85, right? So when do you bug us for more money? And if it's not meeting what we already are in the deficit for, when are you giving us back again? And then we're all here wondering why you didn't get what you wanted or needed
Right.
at the beginning. Because, it's one thing to say what I need. I'm a teacher. We didn't get a raise last year, and we were turning on a dime with what we were. I heard you guys talking about what you had to do. And I'm an elementary teacher with a master's degree. I know my craft very well. I don't know yours, but I know that I paid my bill. I know that I went to work because I had to. I know that I only get 5,000 more than brand new teachers coming in, and I'm 52. You have to do your job. It's a society problem, yes. But sir, the question again is, when do you come back and say, that money wasn't enough, we need more? When?
So-
Another 8 years?
No, ma'am, we can't. Question is, when would we be back? And I tried to cover that a little while ago, for potentially more revenue. So we have committed to the city to get on a path to come in every other year for the next, 4 years or whatever. So we would come in back with 2021, we'd come back in 2023, reconcile where we are, maybe we need more money, maybe we don't, okay? And then 2 years after that, we'd come back again, and we need more money at that point, then we don't. So at a minimum, we come back 2 years from now and let the city know where we are, and if we need additional resources, at that time, we would ask for additional resources. So 2 years from now is when we're planning. That doesn't mean, again, can't tell you, I know in the plan, it says 5.5%. I don't know it's gonna be 5.5% or nothing, right? But it's a placeholder for having the conversation with the city, in a timely manner. It really is unreasonable, and it's our bad. At the end of the day, I'll sit up here and take accountability. It's our bad for waiting 8 years to come to the city and say we need some help. We've tried our best, and it's never good timing. Some folks have asked, why can't you wait until the spring? And we have this conversation 3 months from now. Well, then we get into summer, and folks don't like a rate increase when their bills are the highest, they are year-round. And then after that, there's election to look forward to. And it's a horrible time to, come in and ask a rate increase when there's an election. So the timing is never right. Now's not the great time. You think I want to be up here asking for more rates, in the middle of, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Come on. I know nobody wants a rate increase, but it's my job to at least explain to you why I think we need it and what it means, on how, here's one thing I know. Your power goes out, you're pretty upset, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen. And these investments will allow us to do our very best to make sure that we're on the job. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I have a cough.
That's okay.
But my only problem is, I don't understand all these millions of dollars and stuff, because to me, that's just, I can't understand numbers. I was never doing well when it comes to numbers and math and stuff, but one thing I do understand, when I get my bill and I open it and I see how much I'm having to pay, that I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what I've been trying to do is, in the winter, I set my thermostat very low. I double up and I move stuff around the house and all, so I'm not cold. At night, I double up again, my blankets, so I can bring my bill down. In the summer, I put my thermostat up.
Yes, ma'am.
And I sometimes I'm just wearing the swimsuit, so I can keep it up high. But when my bill comes again, there's not much change. It's
Right.
like, why am I suffering through all this? There's not much difference, and I called CPS, and I said, hey, why is my bill still the same?
Sure.
Yeah, so why is it? Why isn't it just better for me to stop suffering and just be normal and keep my house comfortable?
Sure.
But then I'm gonna have even a bigger bill.
Right, so the question being asked is, I do my part to make sure I'm controlling my air conditioning, which air conditioning is probably 25, depending on, where you have your thermostat, 25 to maybe 35% of your overall bill is air conditioning. I do my part to manage my cost, but my bill is the same all the time. Why is that? There could be all kinds of reasons why. Do you have gas or no gas?
I have gas.
Okay, if you have gas, that helps with the heating, so it takes the heating out of the heating, out of the equation, assuming you have a gas heater. There are all kinds of reasons why, and we've got folks here who can take a look at your bill, can take a look at the meter data, and can analyze where your energy's going and how you can be more efficient. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and it doesn't change your bill, then certainly there's probably an opportunity there. Yeah. So our team, the back table, and I'll say for everybody, we have, umpteen programs for seniors, for, burn veterans discount, for affordability customers. If you're on a medical device, we need to know that you're on a medical device. We have a critical care customer program that we can put you on, so that if your power goes out, we'll get a text message and we'll pick up the phone and call you saying, hey, are you okay? Or do you need to be transported to family member's house or a hospital or something like that? And we can help, facilitate in there. There's all these programs that are available. Most customers don't know it. So I would just tell you, we've got a lot of really good information back there that I would suggest. You don't qualify? Well, even if you don't qualify for one of the programs, even if you don't, at a minimum, every month, if you find yourself that you can only pay $100, that month for whatever reason, you got medical expense or something comes up, and I have worked for multiple utilities, both in the private sector and the public sector. There's not a utility that works harder to work with our customers than CPS Energy. Even if you just need a few months to pay off a really big August bill, for instance, we'll spread that out over some amount of time, pay $25 a month extra, whatever you can afford, and we'll work with you for, the next year. So even if you don't qualify for any of the assistance programs, there is still things that we can do to help you. But it starts with making a connection. KJ Fedder's here. She's over really our customer outreach team that gets out in the community. She can help you. Any of the folks that in the back here can help you. But one other thing I add is since the February storm, we've had over 100,000 of our customers who have gone into, either called us or gone into their online system and updated their phone contact information. If you have not done that in a while, and everybody changes cell phones every now and then, let us know what number you want us to contact, whether you want us to text or email you. Make sure that we have updated information, because as Chad said earlier, we are starting to send out proactive communications. We got about 700,000 customers that we can actually send information out to, saying, hey, we got a storm coming, or this February. If we see a really cold weather system coming, we're going to tell you, hey, you need to look at your emergency action plan. So you need to start thinking about what you're going to do next Tuesday when we expect the storm to come in. That's we've been playing with that system, for the last 6 months or so, and we finally got to a point where we feel pretty good that we're getting kind of critical mass on being able to communicate to customers. So if you haven't looked at what number we have for you recently, I would ask you to please take a look at it. Just call us, 210-353-2222, and just check real quick to make sure we have the right contact information, because we're going to work real hard going forward to make sure you got the information you need to make some decisions. That's when we're a place where, as a community, it wasn't just us. I think the councilman would acknowledge that us in the city saw us. We could have all worked harder to communicate with our community, and we're looking forward to doing a better job this next time. Yes, sir.
Can you help us understand the root cause of what left us with this $1 billion bag we're holding, and what we're doing about
Sure.
it?
So the question is, can you tell us in as simply as we can, because we get real utility geeky on this, quickly, what the root cause of the fuel cost was? And it's a couple things. CPS Energy is the fourth largest generator in the state of Texas. For the storm, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. That week, our fuel bill was $1 billion that week. Our fuel bill for the entire year is $1 billion. So that just gives you some context. We're a big entity. We buy a lot of fuel on an annual basis. Those price spikes went from, $3-4 for natural gas.
I got that.
Yeah.
What's the root cause?
Well, the root cause is to keep gas flowing. So for CPS Energy, we've got both power plants that are gas plants, and we've got a natural gas system that's one of the largest in the state of Texas. So the fuel that it took us to keep our natural gas system never lost gas. So the good majority of that is the gas we were pumping into our natural gas system to heat homes and to do the things that folks do with their gas in their homes.
But Rudy, that's more a symptom. What's the cause?
Well,
Who was upstream of all of that?
gotcha.
Driving the train that we couldn't throw the switch for.
Well,
Shut it off.
it's not. ERCOT allowed prices to get way above what reasonable.
Okay, now we're getting closer to the issue.
Right.
So what's going on with ERCOT to get that solved? And I know a lot of this is out of your hands.
So,
And,
yes, sir.
the council and the state legislature and the beyond that, I'm sure.
Quick.
But I'm trying to understand, how did we wind up holding that $1 billion bag?
Right. So, well, again, some of it, it's hard to plan for an event like that. I mean, the entire state of Texas, yeah.
You're still not getting me back to the root cause.
Well, two things.
What's the politics?
We-
or
we-
what's the
yeah.
crap that's going on, the people gouging us or whatever?
So certainly, so the question is, again, what was the root cause of the issue with the fuel during the winter storm? What we saw was about a week ahead of the storm, we saw gas supply starting to come down. So in our part of our litigation with the natural gas suppliers is, number one, we believe there was some market manipulation going on, but they weren't doing anything more to get more gas out of the ground. They have no requirements to weatherize the way we do with our power plants. To this day, the Railroad Commission, it's all voluntary. If you don't want to weatherize, you can pay a $150 administrative fee and get out of that when the PUC is charging utilities $1 million a day per issue, for a violation. So there's a disconnect between how natural gas suppliers are treated and how power generators are treated. That still remains an issue. That could happen again. That hasn't been fixed. So part of it was the way the natural gas markets work and the gas suppliers, which we've sued the hell out of. And the other part of it is a lot of the market reforms that the PUC is focused on with ERCOT are meant to prevent that price from getting to that $9,000 and staying there. They've already lowered that $9,000 to, I think it's $4,000 now, $4,000 or $5,000, and they can't keep it there for, they kept it there probably 31 hours longer than it should have been, which cost the market just billions of dollars. What happened is you had 25 to $30 billion get uplifted out of the utility sector and dropped into the natural gas sector. That's a problem. That shouldn't happen, and customers ultimately end up paying that bill. So ERCOT's one of them. The natural gas supply industry is the other.
Okay, all I'm suggesting is, I'm not convinced we're doing real root cause analysis and figuring out where the real problem is. I'm still hearing symptoms. I'm not hearing what's the cause.
Yes, sir.
And it's way beyond what my brain can absorb, I'm sure. But I'm just asking you guys, you got to dig deeper and figure out where that real root cause is and start attacking it. And it's not, you guys have very little leverage. It's got to start with the council,
Yeah.
and it's got to go up to the legislature. Somebody's got to be really held accountable.
Agreed. We tried, sir. The legislature passed didn't pass a lot of legislation that we asked them to take a look at. Councilman?
Yeah, let me just put an asterisk on that. It is up to the legislature. The city council has nothing to do with that. Now, we have what we call an intergovernmental relations committee here in San Antonio that I'm a member of, and I'm going to be pushing this to be at our next legislative session, which isn't for another 2 years. So we kind of got our hands tied behind our back right now. Now, the legislature said, or the governor said, they passed like 11 or 12 different items to fix the problem. I don't think it's fixed. I don't think it will be fixed with all that they've already passed. I think, to your point, yeah, it needs to go deeper. And we're going to take another look at that when we get up closer to this next legislative session. In fact, we're talking about that now to prepare for that next legislative session. So yeah.
So I'm not trying to take a shot at you, Rudy. I'm just saying.
No. He under.
Deep,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
looking at the painful stuff that's got to get done.
Yeah.
Make it start.
This ERCOT and PUC and the legislature and all this stuff makes my head hurt. That's how complicated it is. All right, sorry to take so much time.
Carlton? Yes, sir.
Tie in a little bit off of what this gentleman said. I understand, ERCOT and the formulas that essentially it was algorithms that went out of control, where they're trying to put the brakes on usage and demand by ramping up price, and no one saw this kind of event occurring. So it's really computers And which are tied to contracts, unfortunately,
It is,
drove some of this.
yeah, it is, Carlton, but I'll tell you one thing. We're talking about the ERCOT, the price on ERCOT, you know, the PUC and ERCOT leadership made a conscious decision to artificially push the price to 9,000 and hold it there for a hell of a lot longer than we thought was appropriate. And that's what caused all the, you know, there were winners and losers in that deal, and unfortunately, we were on the,
But it was like, it's
on the
all
bad
like
side.
with Bitcoin, it's all
Yes,
made
sir.
up.
Yes, sir.
Essentially, it
That's
wasn't
right.
real price.
That's
the
right.
gas went-
Markets were not operating, you know, freely. They were artificially manipulated to that level.
Right, so the question is, if we go into another event, and that hadn't been fixed, obviously, they didn't do what they needed to do this last session to fix those circumstances. What is CPS doing to say, if that type of event were to occur again, we're okay because we're doing more fixed rate pricing versus variable rate? Well, in other words, if we know that the possibility of lightning striking again is out there, what can you guys do that shields the customers
Yes, sir.
from that type of event occurring again?
So, question is, you know, what have we done to do things differently for this winter in terms of our physical supply? And there's a couple of things that we've done. We've increased our storage capacity by about 30%, and we've changed the contract to be able to get more gas out of storage. We've also, you mentioned it, we've increased our firm supply. So we've added additional resources for the winter season. We buy gas pretty much in kind of month strips, and so we bought more gas going into the winter. And we've also moved our hedge position. So there are two ways you can protect yourself financially. One is with the physical hedge, you buy more gas. The other was with the financial hedge. Basically, an insurance policy says, if the price goes above this level, I bought an insurance policy to keep it fixed at some level kind of in between. So we've actually increased our hedge position pretty substantially for this coming winter. So we've done what we think is reasonable. All of that costs more money, but again, is spending $50 million more going into this winter season better than paying $1 billion in fuel costs? I think it is. And I think you would expect us to do that based on what we learned from last time. So we've done what we think is reasonable and affordable for our customers, and puts us in a much better position this winter. And there, yes, sir, gentleman in the back.
Yeah, isn't one of the big problems for the electric system that we're cut off from the rest of the United States? We're not in the Western network or the
Sure.
Eastern network.
Question is it part of the problem that we're not interconnected to other parts of the country grid? There's basically an eastern and a western grid, and then there's ERCOT. Well, a lot of people, if they had their choice, Texas still be its own country. And that's certainly the way, our electric system is set up. We have some what we call, smaller ties to the other grids where we can transport, small amounts of power, 200-300 megawatts. It's not the bulk power that you have when you've got transmission, interconnects the way, the eastern and western grids work. Got a small connect into Mexico. I do think that we're looking at expanding that amount of capacity, but it's always been an issue of if we interconnect, and the eastern grid had trouble too. So pretty much the entire central United States was in the exact same position as we were in. Everybody was out. And so I'm not sure being tied to the eastern grid would have done, more for us. Western grid maybe, but, then when PG&E has a problem with wildfires out in California, now that problem becomes our problem. So there are costs and benefits to it, but again, going back to your question about what we can do, that's a state decision. Part of the reason why we're still an independent grid is because our state legislature does not want to be subject to federal jurisdiction on the electric side. So, again, there are trade-offs. And that could work either way for you. I mean, in bad times, it helps. When other states have bad times, that also impacts us, so it's a double-edged sword. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Okay, this is the second year, I think, in a row that we've been rated as a credit risk. And so it's my understanding that by getting the rate increase, this is going to help us, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
With the credit risk.
Absolutely.
And so that is one reason that we are pushing for
Absolutely.
this rate increase, right?
Even with the credit, so the question is, does this help us with our credit rating? Absolutely, this helps us with our credit rating. There are key financial metrics that all our rating agencies look at to determine the financial health of CPS Energy. And we have a very, very high, we're one of the highest in our sector credit rating. We borrow money at a very, very good rate. We just had a transaction about a month ago. We were for the amount of bonds we're putting on the market, we were 5 times oversubscribed. That means that 5 times as many banks were wanting access to our bonds than we had available, and we got it at about 1.3, 1.4%, which is really, fantastic. That means that we're sending less money to New York in the form of interest payments and spending more money in our infrastructure right here at home. So this rate increase helps us stabilize our financial metrics, which absolutely plays in to continuing to receive a strong credit rating. Yes, ma'am.
But we haven't received it, but we were at credit.
Well,
risk
we're on negative watch, but there's been, I think, one of our 3 rating agencies that did downgrade us about 6 months ago.
For the 2 years in a row now, correct?
We got 1 downgrade, but they are on watch.
Right.
So we're talking to them on a weekly basis.
But we're on watch because of all the factors that we've been talking about tonight.
Right, exactly, but the increase would definitely.
Yes, ma'am. Sir, I think, are we good? Any last questions? I'll turn it back over to Councilman Perry. Look, thank you very much. This is exactly what these are intended to be. I recognize that it's tough asking for more rate consideration right now, given all that our community's experienced. Let me just reassure you, you got a leader at CPS Energy that's interested in the feedback you have to offer, that wants to do a good job. I'm going to hold my leadership team accountable to the things that I know you expect out of us. All this negative media has got to stop, and we're going to start to do better. But I just want to assure you that at least during my tenure in this role, I know we're a publicly owned utility, and that's exactly what the way we're going to try to operate, going forward in the future. I appreciate your patience. Again, I'm sorry for the February experience, and we will do better this coming winter. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Rudy and Chad. This was a great briefing. I hope you got out of it what you wanted. We did have some online viewers also, and I haven't made up my mind yet. I'll tell you that right now. I still need to hear from folks in District 10 on what you want. Because look, each one of you that live here in San Antonio, you are the owner of this utility. You own this utility. You should be helping develop that policy on what you expect this utility to do. But we also have to remember that our outlook on CPS is to run this like a business. And you can't run a business with a lot of these outstanding bills just going on and on and on. At some point in time, they have to be paid. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that need to be upgraded, as well as coming and paying these bills that are going to be coming due at some point in time. So you are the owners. What would you do in this circumstance? And look at what CPS is going through. So I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. I still need your input on what I need to do on City Council. And we'll continue to talk about this. And this is going to be coming up to Council when, Rudy?
It'll be January 13th, sir.
January 13th. So you got between now and January 13th to let me know, hey Clayton, yeah, we support this, or no, we don't. I don't just need somebody to say yes, thumbs up or thumbs down. Give me some information and reasons why or why not. That's what I would really like to hear. So yes, sir, you had a comment.
I don't need till the 13th.
Okay.
I can tell you right now that I've been trying to follow the situation ever since February 14th or whenever it was. And it is complicated, and I know there's plenty of blame to go around, starting way at the top in Austin and all the way down. But I think in order to make a bad that situation better. And based on what I've seen tonight and what I've read in the papers and what I experienced personally in February, I'm for it. I'm for a rate increase, and I'd like to see you vote for it.
Okay, well, appreciate that input.
And I'll second that. My takeaway, back to my original question, it sounds more Band-Aid to me, but I don't think you're probably going far enough.
Okay? Yes, sir, you had a comment.
I've lived in my house over here for 43 years, and I've got to give full credit to City Public Service. They've done a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, there you go. All right, well, my staff is always available to answer your calls. Send us an email, send us a text message, go on. This is going to be on Facebook, right, Raul? Yeah, give us some comments on Facebook, whatever. Give us your input, okay? I really would like to get that from you. So thank y'all very much for all your time tonight. And thank you, CPS, again. All right. We'll see y'all around. Y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I forgot to say anything about my
Thank you very much.
live there. I should have been. Thank you very much for your input. Appreciate it.